Well, hello again, everybody. Tony from Refinement, Not Retirement. Thanks for your feedback. So glad you enjoyed part one of Trump on Trial, a UK Perspective, which Christine and I recorded yesterday before the trial actually started. So, um, if you'd like to keep tuned to our UK perspective on what's happening over there in New York in the Trump criminal trial, first US president to be on trial in a criminal court, then do subscribe, follow us, and we'll do our best to give you our UK perspective. So what happened yesterday? Well, yesterday, the main meal, as it were, yesterday was the opening statements. The judge did make decisions about what Trump could be cross-examined on if he decides to testify, which is regarded generally, as I said yesterday, as very highly unlikely to happen. And it seems that he can be cross-examined on quite a lot of things that are potentially very damaging to his position. So then I think we moved on, the court moved on to the opening statements. It's a shame that there's no live coverage in the sense of cameras in the courtroom, because I think this is an absolutely fascinating case, which is of so much importance that I think the public at large should be able to see what's going on in the court. And that's particularly important, I think, when Trump comes out of court and gives his own take, which is usually quite a far away from the actual truth of what happened. So I think for people to actually see what happened in the court would be very, very valuable. Anywho, the opening statements. So the prosecutor, I think his name is Michael Colangelo, asserted that essentially what this trial is about is Trump's attempts to illegally influence the result of the 2016 election. There are 34 counts against him of falsifying business records relating to the hush money payments that were recorded as legal expenses. And apparently that's a violation of campaign finance laws, which makes it very much more serious than it would otherwise be if it was just a matter of falsifying business records per se. The prosecutor referred to the catch and kill scheme. There was a kind of put forward as a conspiracy between Trump and the National Enquirer publication. The objective of that conspiracy, it was explained, was to help Trump. This is the prosecution's position, which of course is denied by Trump. The conspiracy was to help Trump win by keeping negative stories away from the voters, stories relating to apparent affairs and sexual encounters, allegedly, and also spreading negative stories. That was what the National Enquirer apparently did about Trump's political opponents. So that was on the one side. I think that it sounded to me as though the prosecution's case was laid out in a very linear, sort of factual way, in contrast to the other opening statement from the other side by the defense lead attorney, a man by the name of Todd Blanche, which I think was more emotionally oriented, I would say. Essentially, he said that Trump didn't know anything about these payments. He left it all to his lawyer, Michael Cohen. But they have something in which I don't think we have in UK law. They have something called the defense of counsel position, which can be asserted by defendants, which really means that if you take that position, if Trump wants to take that position, this defense of counsel route requires certain things. But essentially, the position is the defendant says Trump would say that it was the lawyer, all down to the lawyer. There was no wrongful intent on his part. He just left it all to his lawyer and acted on his advice, I suppose, is the way it would be put. But that does require certain things of the defendant. He has to sort of completely disclose, for example, that he put all the relevant information to his counsel, and the counsel gave certain advice, and he relied on that advice. But it does mean, I think, that he has to waive, as I understand it, he has to waive attorney-client privilege, which means that all the sort of notes and records can be looked at to see if that really was the case, what the advice, what information the lawyer had, what advice he gave. All that has to come out and be analyzed in minute detail. And it does, although there isn't an inherent requirement on Trump to testify, it's very difficult, it seems to me anyway, to advance such a position without actually testifying. And as I understand it, Trump steered away from asserting that defense of counsel position. And so I think there was an objection when Mr. Blanche was taking the position that Trump just relied on his lawyer. I think there was an objection from the prosecution, and I think that, as they say in America, that objection was sustained. In other words, it prevailed, and so that sort of gets stricken, that assertion gets stricken from the record. So I don't think, it doesn't sound to me as though that taking that position is going to wash. Mr. Blanche also sort of said that Trump did nothing wrong in attempting to influence the election. It's called democracy, I think, was one of his key lines. But I think that sort of kind of misses the point of looking closely at how he attempted to influence the election result. He also painted Trump as a sort of, wholesome family man, which sort of sounds, with the background of what's being asserted by the prosecution here and by the witnesses, what the women witnesses are going to say, just seems a bit lame. So anyway, not much else happened yesterday. The two sides laid out their position, and it seems to me that the prosecution got the better of that side because they are relying on very hard evidence. They were setting out what the evidence is going to show the jury, and it seems to me as though, as the Americans like to say, they have the receipts, so they can point to whatever you might say about Michael Cohen and his the allegations that in the past he's told porky pies. There's a lot, it seems to me, of actual documentary evidence which is going to support Michael Cohen's evidence and other people's evidence, like David Pecker. Now, David Pecker, the National Enquirer guy, started his evidence yesterday, but there were things going on. The court didn't have a full day, and as a result of that, he didn't get very far at all. So what's going to happen today? Well, obviously David Pecker is likely to continue his evidence. I don't suppose we'll get anywhere near the cross-examination, which is going to be fascinating. David Pecker is obviously going to be a very damaging witness to the Trump side, but so it's going to be fascinating to see how they attack him. But the other big thing that's going to be on the agenda for today is the gag order matter, because the prosecution are asserting that Trump breached the gag order, and there's going to be arguments about that on both sides. Did he, didn't he? I think most people think that he did. Most lawyer commentators think that he did. But the question is, what will the judge actually do about that? I mean, he can fine Trump, but not very much money in Trump's universe. But he also has the option to stick him in jail for a bit. which I think is, from a UK perspective, I think it's highly unlikely to happen, because the optics of that could really help Trump act as a martyr. So I think they would want to leave that as very much a last resort, but we'll see. I mean, this guy, Judge Juan Merchan, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, does seem to be a tough cookie, and he doesn't seem to like it when defendants don't obey his orders. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see how that comes out. So that's my take on what happened yesterday from this great distance and from this completely different cultural landscape here in the UK, because we don't really have, I mean, these sort of processes are just so different, even though their system is based on ours historically. Ours, I don't recognize much about the UK law system in what we're seeing over there, but it is really, really interesting and fascinating. So I hope you'll stick with us. I'm sorry that Christine is not joining me today, but it's a little bit more difficult to get her to come on. But she will certainly be appearing with me from time to time and giving her perspective, which is always really, really interesting to hear. So I'll be back soon with another update. But let's see what goes on today. Thanks for sticking with us, and see you next time. That's bye for now.